الله وبركاته.
Alaikum salam. Let's just give everyone like about a minute or so. Inshallah. Bismillah walhamdulillahi wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillahi. So in this series, we're covering al-ma'thurat, which is a series, which is a combination of prayers and supplications and remembrances, which we recite on a daily basis, inshallah, once we become more familiar with them in the morning and the evening. And one of the unique aspects, at least of this collection, is the way that it begins. Last time we covered Al-Fatiha, and we'll review that in brief, but we'll talk a little bit about the way that the Ma'thurat begins, and then we're going to look at the first 5 ayat from Surah Al-Baqarah, inshallah. So, in this collection, the initiation of it begins with taking refuge in Allah. Interestingly enough, here what is being focused on is the fact that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is all hearing and all knowing. And we're taking refuge here before beginning with the recitation of the Quran. And the reason why we say that is because the first set of points of remembrance and supplication and so on and so forth are all contained in Surah Al-Fatiha. So the supplication begins with أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. And so there's going to be another set of opportunities that come up to memorize the Ma'thurat. And I advise everyone, even though I know memorization is not easy, but I advise everyone to participate in that process, especially when it comes to this type of knowledge. Those of us who have been in Islam for a couple decades or more, we realize the mistakes that we made in the past. And of the mistakes that we made in the past was the way that we gained knowledge. A lot of times we were jumping from book to book. We really didn't have discipline. And we also didn't study those things that we needed most in order to develop ourselves spiritually. And so we got caught in a lot of fixation on how is it that we look, or what is it that we're supposed to do as far as an action or say as far as a word. But with regard to our relationship to Allah, many of us, I won't speak for all of us, many of us, we fell short. And so this type of knowledge is a knowledge that is very practical, and it's a protection on a spiritual level and also on a mental health level for hold on one second, because somebody's asking me for the passcode.
It should be zero shake. Zero shake.
Yeah, but they're coming at me through Messenger. Hold on one second.
And if they have the link, they shouldn't need a passcode.
Hold on one second to the Yes. Okay. So sorry about that. Somebody wants to join. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So we reorient ourselves. So many of us, we didn't have the means to understand how to connect with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And so we got good knowledge, but we didn't have the tools that we needed to develop ourselves exactly. And so it's part of the process of learning. So part of what we do in this collaboration uh, between the Respect Masjid and the Rebirth for Reconnect and what we do with our work and the three Puerto Rican imams and so on and so forth is we try to close these gaps and make sure that we're orienting ourselves properly. So this is probably the most essential knowledge that you can have, not only because it's is important from the angle of developing a connection with Allah Ta'ala, but because it's the knowledge which is helping you to have a sound connection. A sound connection. This knowledge is consists of the Quran and the Sunnah, and it's certain select ayat from the Quran and supplications that we get from the ahadith, and they have specific meanings and objectives, and it's set up in such a way where you have a practical sense of tawheed, practical sense of belief in Allah, and also what we call tawakkul, or depending upon Allah. So we begin with this idea of taking refuge in Allah, realizing that we can't do it all alone in the world. And from the Asma'i wa Sifat, or from the names and attributes of Allah, the first thing that we encounter is this idea that Allah, who is Allah, the all-hearing, the all-knowing. And so that should give us a sense of assurance. Whoever, everyone, please mute your mics. So, so we get a sense of Allah wa Ta'ala being all hearing and all knowing, and by default, this sense that Allah is all present, meaning that Allah is present with us on a regularity, on regularity without break, because Allah is everywhere by His knowledge, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we come close to Allah wa ta'ala predicated or based upon our deeds and our remembrance. Our deeds and if we do good deeds, then we have more of an opportunity to stay in the presence of Allah wa ta'ala. And part of what we talked about last time is dhikr, or remembrance of Allah. It's not just to say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, what dhikr means, but it's also to do those acts which remind us or put us in connection with Allah. So that's the first principle that we get, is that Allah is all hearing and all knowing, and we take refuge in Allah from shaitan, who's accursed. And the idea is that evil itself, it exists. It does exist. And Allah is aware of that. But the believer, male and female, men and women, have the responsibility uh, to understand that this world is a place in which we have choices. And it's a place in which there's not a sense of just ease, is ease and hardship. There's not a sense where there's just peace. At times we lack peace. There's a sense of opposites here. And so, especially when we talk about the concept of evil, one of the purposes of evil that is existence in the world is for us not only to make choice between good and bad, but it also exists so that we develop ourselves. And we develop ourselves by depending upon Allah, by seeking from Allah, and by trusting in Allah, and by looking for good from Allah, and taking refuge in Allah from going astray. And so Surah Al-Fatiha, we covered it last time. We just wanted to say that Surah Al-Fatiha, it was from the first of the Quran to be revealed. It wasn't. There's some slight debate amongst the scholars if it was the first of the Quran to be revealed exactly, but most of the scholars are of the opinion is that it was from the earliest of the Quran to be revealed. We know that without a doubt. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so Surah Al-Fatiha, people, it gives us a general understanding of the whole of the Quran. And the more that we reflect upon it, the more that we get the heart or the gist of the Quran, right? It's called Umul Kitab, or the mother of the book. You know, it has a number of different names, but overall, the most important thing for us here to have an understanding is that it gives us a summary. Now, let me ask a question really fast. What is it that we're asking Allah for in Surah Al-Fatiha? Anybody?
Guidance.
Guidance. Okay, we're asking for guidance. Okay, then when we look at the next grouping of ayat that are part of our daily routine, here it begins with Alif Lam Mim, right? We just go to the English. Uh, that is the book in which there's no doubt, containing guidance for the God-fearing. So you see the connection? Do you see the connection between uh, we're asking for guidance in Surah Al-Fatiha, and then the next grouping of ayat that come from Surah Al-Baqarah is telling us that the Quran is guidance. What's the connection there at face value, people?
That he has sent the book without doubt with guidance, with such
So,
guidance.
okay, but what are we doing then? So then what are we doing in Surah Al-Fatiha? We're asking for what?
We're asking for Allah to take us on the straight path, to keep us on the straight path.
To guide us, right?
Right.
Correct.
And so then what are we doing when we're reciting in the next group? We're reciting things about the Quran. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه.
For
Allah's
help.
هدى
direct.
هدى
For help.
That
huh?
We asking Allah to help us.
In Surah Al-Fatiha, but in Surah Al, in the
oh,
next grouping of ayat, what are we doing?
should we raise our hands or did you just want us to call out?
You can call out. I mean, I don't want to
Uh,
be controlling.
I
So
think
just be mindful of each other. That's it.
okay. I think in Surah Al-Fatiha he's asking for. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna let others talk. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. No. Go on. Come on. Don't get scared now. What is it that you think? This is not a judging contest. We want to make
Um,
a connection with the
I
information.
I think that Al-Fatiha we're asking Allah for guidance, and then
Mhm.
and then in Surah Al-Baqarah Allah is letting us know that the Quran is the guidance we're asking for.
Right. So it's like what we ask for, we receive immediately. And there's a secret to that. We can say that when we're asking for dua, when we're asking in dua, because here is an issue of dua. Remember we said that we distinguished between dua and dhikr last time, right? Anybody remember that? Okay, so we distinguished between dua and dhikr last time. We said that dua, and we can spell it in English, dua, dua versus dhikr, dhikr. Dhikr is remembering Allah, whereas dua is supplicating or requesting from Allah. So here we're requesting from Allah, and we're also being taught that that request that we're making is given to us, and it's a platform, or it's a model for us, so that we have that sense that our dua is answered. Our dua is answered when we ask Allah. Is answered. It may not be answered at the time period that we want or in the way that we want, but it will be answered. because one of the things that we initiated with here is that Allah is all hearing and all knowing. So Allah hears our request. Our job is to create the conditions as much as possible for our requests to be requests that are recognized, and our dua, our supplication to be recognized, right? And so what that means is that to live a lifestyle, which we're on good terms with Allah, put it that way. It doesn't mean that we're on bad terms with Allah, or we're sinning, that we can't get forgiveness, that we can't get guidance, and so on and so forth. But what it means is that there's a lot more work that has to be done in that process, but it's easier, to navigate life, to get support, when we stay close to Allah wa ta'ala. It's like knowing that with our cell phones, if we're going into certain areas, we're not going to get signal. And if we go into other areas, our signal is weak. And if we go into other areas, our signal is strong. Same concept, with regard to our lifestyle and our faith. Some things we engage in is going to weaken our faith, and other things is going to strengthen us and put us on good terms, and other things is going to take us out. And so keeping that in mind, we go with the flow. So now there's three parts to this. We first start with taking refuge in Allah. Then we start by reflecting upon and reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. Then we follow that up with the ayat from Surah Al-Baqarah. Most of these ayat are what we call sifat, the characteristics. The first is a characteristic of, or we could say a couple characteristics of the Quran, right? And telling us who are the people that have gained the pleasure of Allah. Because remember, Surah Al-Fatiha, we ask, guide us to the straight path, the path of those whom you have bestowed your favor, an'amta alayhim, right? And so in reality, who those people are is described in this second grouping of ayat. Who are the people that have gained the favor of Allah? Those who are on guidance, right? Those who possess a sense of awareness of Allah's presence, and in a sense of fear to incur the wrath of Allah or the anger of Allah, displease Allah, right? And so, but the reality of the situation is that here, Surah Al-Baqarah begins with Alif Lam Mim. You're going to see that in the Quran sometimes it begins with a number of different letters. There's a number of different positions and so on and so forth with regard to what they mean. But in general, one of the most non-controversial positions is that these are letters from which the Quran is composed. Remember that the people that the Quran was first revealed to, they were poets. So the Quran was challenging their poetry and their knowledge base, and saying, like, these are letters that you know, but look, from these letters that you know, that you create your so-called raps and so on and so forth, your poems from, that you're showing off with them, because that's what they used to do. They used to create poetry to show off, or poetry to insult, and so on and so forth, or poetry to talk about their vices. Very similar to music today. And so from these letters, the Quran is composed. And so the Quran is described as a lofty book above, everyone, in a high place, so that it is that sense that is honored. And then is described, La rayba fihi, that it's a book of certainty. It's a book of certainty. So it's a book that, yes, we need to reflect upon it and read it with constancy, but there's no doubt in it. And that gives us a reassurance that if it's a book that there's no doubt in it, it can guide us. Because if it's a book that has doubt in it, how are we going to feel secure, or how are we going to feel confident that it can guide us? So there's this understanding that, okay, we want guidance. Okay, where do we get guidance from? You know how it is when you're looking in the world for people to give you advice, and they may give you advice, and you go to one person, you get one sense of advice, another person another sense of advice, and sometimes that may throw you into doubt. But in the Quran here, where there's an assumption that's made, we're calling it the book, right? We're calling it the book, but it is a book that is revealed from Allah. It's a book that contains the speech of Allah, and then we're called to reflect on the nature of the book. It's the speech of Allah in which there's no doubt, right? And it gives us guidance. But the trick here, and it's not really a trick, the condition is for us to be people with certain characteristics. And then later on, Surah Al-Baqarah, it tells us how to gain those characteristics. It tells us by worshiping Allah that we will gain the characteristics of taqwa, right? And so here it's telling us that the people that are guided, that take benefit from the Quran, are the people that are God-fearing, or they have taqwa, they're conscious of God, and they act to please God. We may not feel that we're from those people. Does that mean that we get discouraged and we run the other way and we say, well, it's a done deal? I don't want to deal with this anymore. No, the Quran is just telling us what rank we want to be in, because we asked to be from that rank in Surah Al-Fatiha. We're asking to be from those who Allah has blessed and honored and giving his favor to. And so the people that gain that favor from Allah, they have a high station, right? You as a Muslim, you have a high station with Allah, right? And you have a high station because you have guidance that's coming to you as a favor from Allah. It's not something that we necessarily earn, but it's a favor, it's a blessing that's given. And so then the Quran follows that up with talking about who are the believers. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Right? The believers are those who they find security and tranquility. They find the sense of stability in believing in the unseen. And imagine if you take away the whole concept that life has meaning to it. Imagine if you take away the concept that everything has a purpose, and think about how life functions then at that point. Some of us, we may have gone through a stage in our life, in our lives, where we didn't believe at all. Or we know people that don't believe, and we know that when stuff hits the fan, they break down. They get high, they go party, they drink. Some of them are suicidal. And it's not to put anybody down, but it's to say that, this reality of Iman, or in the unseen, it gives us a certain degree of security, especially when it comes to the meaning of death, when it comes to feeling that you're not in the world alone, you're supported, you have aid. And then now the Quran is not only focusing on the issue of what is the belief of that qualifies a person to be a believer, but now there's a certain set of actions. وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ. So the believers, they establish the salah. They have that connection with Allah through that act of the worship that has been specified, that has been legislated, that has been designated as a way to connect with Allah. We don't have to make up a path for how we connect with Allah. We're guided. We're given a guidance on how to connect with Allah. It's like the difference between somebody that's lost and they encounter someone that tells them, well, look, I think if you want to get where you're going, and you're really even not sure where you want to go, and the person tells you, well, I think if you go down about 3 blocks straight like this, and then you see like this yellow house on your right, I think is on your left. But then anyway, you turn on that street and you turn to the left, and then you go down like another few blocks, and then you turn right. And and then you'll see where you need to get. There's all kind of doubt in that. That's not real guidance versus the person that tells you, you go down about 2 blocks, you pass 2 stop signs. You're going to see a red house on the right, and that red house on the right it's a no way, so you have to make a left, and then you go left until you hit the light, which is about 1.5 blocks, and then at the light you're going to see a street sign, and there's the name of the street, and it says the chosen way, You make a right there, and then as soon as you make a right, there's like Route 76 or Route 95, and you'll see the signs really clear. Or GPS that just tells you, you go straight for 2 minutes and then you go left. That's clear guidance. That's clear guidance. That's a clear way. So the Quran is outlining for us what is the guidance. It's taking us step by step as far as how we see the world, how we understand the world, and what we should do in the world. And so the two main things here are belief in the unseen. And belief in the unseen, it's very loaded in what that means. It means not only believing in Allah, but believing in revelation, believing the revelation is given to the prophets, believing in angels, is believing that everything in life is purposeful, right? And it's determined. It has a specific, purpose, and everything has its limit, and it works within the system. That that life, is not just life in this world, but there's another life that comes, and there's the judgment day. Belief in the unseen. It contains a series of beliefs which distinguish us from other people. Believing in the oneness of God, that God is not a human being, neither male nor female. There's certain things that constitute belief in the unseen. And so, in addition to that, it's not just that we hold certain tenets or certain ideas, key concepts, principles in our heart as a matter of what we think and what we hold on to, and what we acknowledge with certainty. Belief has a lot to do with acknowledging certain things with certainty, that we're not doubting in them, and especially the key points of belief, the what we call the usul of iman, the 6 articles of iman that are outlined in the hadith that we call the hadith of Jibreel, in which Jibreel, the angel of revelation, comes to teach us our religion. In that hadith, those are the key things that we should be clear on. Maybe some other things we may question a little bit. We may question a little bit, and we may need a little bit of time to be firm in them. But we have to get firm in these 6 articles of faith, right? These 6 articles of faith. That's extremely important. And so it's not just a matter of believing with certainty these things, but it's also the certain set of actions. And what's key here is salah, and it's followed up by that from what we gain from the provisions of Allah, the rizq of Allah, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, that we share it. And there's 2 types of sharing. There's a sharing that's obligatory, which is, we call it zakat, and the sharing which is encouraged, which we call it sadaqah, or just charity. But zakat is not charity. And so in the Quran, usually salah and zakat, or salah and giving, in this case, they usually accompanied together on many occasions. And so that's something that is being repeated. And then now the characteristics of the believers is mentioned once again. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. So Quran is clarifying a little more here. What is belief in the unseen, right? And belief in the unseen is to believe in the books, in this case, what was revealed, right? In this case, to the Prophet Muhammad, which is the Quran, and what was revealed before to the other prophets. And the last day, they have certainty of it. And not only do they have certainty of it, they protect themselves from it. The real meaning of taqwa is waqaya. Waqaya is that you protect yourself. And part of protecting yourself, there's no problem for being half an hour late. Part of protecting yourself is to seek good, to do good, right? To do good. And so then the status of those people, the status of those people is that the Quran is saying, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَى هُدَى أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَى هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. That are those people, wow, those people that have status. They have lofty status, right? Because they have these characteristics before Allah. Those are the ones that are guided by their Rabb, the one that created them, guides them and takes care of them. And those people, they're the ones that are successful, and they enter into a state of joy and happiness without limit. And so here, uh, this set begins. Let's read the English translation with recalling who Allah is by reading in the name of Allah, but recalling that Allah is all merciful, right? To in a general sense and in a specific sense. In a general sense to all of the creation, in a specific sense to the believers. And so we initiate it with taking refuge in Allah, who is the all seeing, all hearing, all seeing. And so then in Surah Al-Fatiha, we begin the reflection on the Quran with being informed that Allah is all merciful, all compassionate. And then again, we come back to that point that Allah is all merciful, all compassionate, right? And then we're reminded of what are the qualities of the believers, right? So then it says Alif Lam Mim, and we went over that. We said that these letters are what you call huruf al-muqatta'. They're letters that some chapters of the Quran begin with, and in general, we take them as they are. They're letters, and we know that the Quran is composed of letters, and we leave it at that. We don't give them secret meanings or anything like that. We leave them. There's some controversy, with regard to the way some people understand it, but keep it simple, people. So here, then these ayat of the Quran from Surah Al-Baqarah, after the letters being recited, it says that is the book, right? That is has or is possessed of no doubt, right? Is guidance, has guidance for people that is conscious of Allah in their belief and in their practice, right? That's really the meaning of taqwa, right? And so then who are those people? They believe in the unseen. Those who believe in the unseen. And then what is it that they do that is foundational? And it should remind us of our daily practice, of our orientation on a daily basis, that we establish the salah. And we share from our wealth with others. We share with from our wealth with others. And what else? And who believe in what is revealed to Muhammad, in this case, which is the Quran, and to all the prophets that came before, right? And when it comes to the issue of the hereafter, they protect themselves and they're certain about it, right? They protect themselves by belief in doing good, and they're certain about that reality that is coming, not only death, but the day of judgment, right? The day of judgment. And then it finishes with saying that these are the people that are guided by their Rabb. I prefer not to use the word Lord people. I think it takes away from the meaning. We should know the word as it is in Arabic, Rabb. We say Rabbul Alameen. We say Rabb. And we should know that it means that Allah not only created us, but sustains us, guides us, and is looking after us. Right? It's just a name of Allah that we should have that sense of. And Rabb also means that all of the creation is taken care of. And you see it go from one stage to another stage. You see seeds grow and they develop into plants and trees. You see babies, they develop in the womb and they become adults. You see the birds, they're taken care of. These are all the actions in the world that are indicative or point to the meaning of Rabb, right? And so it gives you a sense that life is purposeful, it's meaningful. This is not haphazard. Things are according to a plan, according to the qadr of Allah and the wisdom of Allah. So the word Rabb should be left as it is, right? And if you want to enter into a state of perpetual felicity or perpetual happiness without end, which is al-falah, then you cultivate your belief. Prosper here is one sense, right? But falah is a little more than that. But prosper here in the sense spiritually and materially as well, right? Spiritually and materially in terms of having blessings in our life for what it is that we do. We call it barakah, right? And so the blessing of Allah comes with being grateful, and it comes with doing good and so on. So we're gonna pause here if there's any comments or anything like that. But this is a practical way to regenerate our iman and exercise our aqidah or our belief, right? And we're reminding ourselves that it's reality, because it's easy to forget when trials and tribulations in life comes, or you get too busy. Orienting oneself is not that easy. And so with this program, this program of dua and dhikr, which consists of ayat of the Quran and ahadith and so on and so forth, it gives us a sense of orientation, and it allows us to reconnect with who we are as Muslims and what it really is Islam, and what is our relationship to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And in the next session, we'll cover the next set of ayats from the Quran as well. And this, it's a little more heavy. It may take, maybe a couple sessions. We'll see how that plays itself out. But does anyone have anything to share, or any questions or any comments?
So everyone, if you can, raise your hands, inshallah ta'ala, we'll monitor and then call on you if you're going to go ahead and want to speak and use the mic. If not, you can also use the chat, inshallah ta'ala. I know Sister Miriam in the chat, Brother Yusuf, she put, is the 6 articles of faith the same as the 6 pillars of faith?
Yeah, the same thing, same exact thing. Can anybody recite what they are?
I thought it was 7 articles of faith.
What are they?
So Miriam
What
has
are
her
those?
hands up to it. So Miriam has her hand up to go ahead and recite them, inshallah. Miriam, you can make.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. They are the belief in Allah, the belief in His angels, the belief in His books, the messengers, the belief in the Day of Judgment, and the Qadr of Allah.
Mm-hmm. And who said that there were 7? What was the one that you felt that was left out? Standard definition is those with the adjustment of the order, but that's fine. Belief in Allah, the oneness of Allah, belief in the angels, belief in the books, the messengers, the Day of Judgment and hereafter, and the Qadr of Allah. Somebody said that they were 7.